We alive. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Rebel Roundtable. It is April 5th already. Can you believe how far we are into 2025 already? It's crazy. I am so fortunate today to have Michele Molitor join me. And Michele is one of my absolute favorite brain people because she actually understands how my brain does or does not work. But she's the CEO of Nectar Consulting, and she's a transformational coach, clinical hypnotherapist, a speaker, an author, and she really uses neuroscience to help people find their best improvements and their best way of life to make a difference. And so I really appreciate having her. She has been a longtime friend and colleague, and she is the co-author of a best-selling book, I Am Perfectly Flawsome, How Embracing Imperfection Makes Us Better. And today we're going to talk about how lawyers are not perfect.
No,
Welcome,
really?
Michele. Yes. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jen. I'm delighted to be here with you.
uh, Feel free to tell the audience a little bit more about what you do and what you are, because I don't do as good of a job as you do introducing yourself.
Oh, sure, no problem. I've been a professional coach for almost 24 years now. That's time flying by fast. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, best-selling author, and now award-winning author because we just
Ooh,
won the
congratulations.
International Impact Book Award for I Am Perfectly Flawsome, my colleague Tom Collins and I. And I'm a speaker as well. And I basically help people understand and get at the root causes of their limiting beliefs that internal head noise that we all have in different ways that I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy or who am I or it's not perfect yet. All of that hooey that we tell ourselves that isn't true um, comes from different events in our lives. Sometimes they're just casual comments. Sometimes they're really traumatic events that have happened to us that we then adopt as beliefs and go, well, that must be true because so and so said it. And so my joy is really helping people get at the root causes, understanding
Yeah.
that those things happened in the past and they're no longer a part of who you are. And so you can let them go and literally rewire your brain with new neural pathways, with new empowering beliefs to live your best life and do your best work in the world.
It's always fascinating to me to listen to you talk, first of all, because I know the things in my past that we've talked about that have impacted how I think about myself. And so it's always like when you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, remember those things I used to do that I don't think as much anymore because of Michele. So thank you for that. But let's talk about lawyers.
Yes, let's.
Perfectionism runs deep in the legal profession. We don't embrace our flaws well. Why do you, what it is about lawyers that makes that the case?
Well, I think part of it is societal. There's a high bar. There's a perspective of lawyers that out in the world that they're all super smart. They all have it all together. And you know how to read those darn contracts, all that legalese. So you must be super smart because you can go through that, right? And so I think there's a part of it, our ego says, oh, I have to get it right? Because I have to maintain this look, right? And there is a lot of exactness in the work that you do. So, you know, important things are on the line. So I get the need for perfection. It's just when perfection crosses the line from a place of striving for excellence, of doing our very best, and sometimes that's flawsome, right? It's flawed and awesome at the same time. But when it moves into toxic perfectionism, where it's negatively impacting your body, right? That's causing you excessive stress or anxiety, keeping you up at night, or worse, physical ailments are coming into play, then yeah, you need to figure out how to dial it back.
I feel like lawyers always feel like they have to have the answers. And that's especially dangerous because lawyering is very specific to practice areas. We don't
Mhm.
always have the answers, even in our specialty area. How can embracing your, like, as you said, flossom self help shift the pressure that we feel like we have to always have the answers for everything?
Well, knowing that we're all human, right? Um, and that we all make mistakes. And so I want you to think of a pie, right? So there's this slice of pie of this is what I know that I know, right? And then
Mhm.
there's a smaller, tiny, tiny slice of the pie that is, I know that I don't know this. And then there's the whole rest of the pie that is, I don't even know that I don't even know this, right? Like there's all the things in
That's the
the
scary
universe
part.
that we just don't even know that we don't even know, right? And
Yeah.
so lawyers need to embrace that understanding that we all only know just really a little bit. And there's always room for growth. There's always places that we can learn and grow. So it's like, well, I don't know that, but I can go find out, right? That's always the key phrase. I can find out. I have people to call. I know. I can always call Jen and go, "Who do you know who knows this, this, and this?" She's like, "Oh, you just need to contact so and so." I'm like, "Oh, yes, right." And so it's through our extended networks that we expand our awareness, really, um,
Yeah.
to find those answers.
I think that mindset shift that you're kind of dancing around, which it's in my brain that I'm dancing around. But the mindset shift there tends to be we have lawyers, we talked about generational differences before in previous episodes, different things. But I also find that in the lawyering industry, the legal industry, we tend to do that. Oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can't possibly learn anything new. When things are changing so quickly, you have to make that mindset shift into there's always room for me to learn something new. At least
Absolutely.
that's what I'm seeing these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anything, do
We,
you
well,
have any
we,
specific ways to talk about that mindset shift? Because it's hard for people who are stuck in their ways to shift that way.
and that's very true. And I appreciate that you brought that up because things are changing so fast. With AI coming roaring in and changing all of our lives, um, we have answers at our fingertips like never ever before. Um, And if you've been doing this work, like both of us have been doing it for our perspective, our fields for a very long time, but there's always new things to learn. And so getting out of our own way and going from a fixed mindset of this is just what it is, and this is what I know, and there can't possibly be any more to a growth mindset. Carol Dweck talks about this, right? Of there's we can always learn new things. Our brains are our neuroplasticity, the science of that tells us that we can always build new connections, new synaptic connections in our brains, and it's just a matter of use it or lose it, right? So
Mhm.
continuing to learn and grow is vital to not only a person's success but also to their brain health.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's one thing we all fall into is we don't use it as much because we think we don't have to. Um, Shifting topics a little bit, but still on the same time, the same lines of how we think about ourselves. And let's talk about imposter syndrome. I talk to lawyers all the time that are like, oh, I couldn't do that because I don't have whatever in their mind they think is they're not good enough, or who am I to say that? It's really rampant in the law, especially even among top performers. There are many of us who think that who am I to teach this when who am I to do this? But how do you see it showing up from the neuroscience side and what's really going on beneath the surface?
Well, imposter syndrome is one of my personal favorites, right? I like to think I'm a recovering perfectionist and an recovering imposter um, after getting bullied out of my high-tech career in web development many, many moons ago now. Um, and it created this rampant belief or lack of belief in myself. It's really all about self-doubt at a much deeper level. And perfectionism is just one of those symptoms, right, that shows up because our confidence has gotten damaged nicked, destroyed in some way, shape, or form. And even lawyers who were super successful, right? You think, well, of course they're confident, they believe in themselves, they can do anything they want. But there's some part of themselves that somewhere along the way, somebody really damaged that sense of self and confidence in themselves that holds
Mhm.
them back, which is why perfectionism becomes so rampant, is because we're trying to overcompensate for the parts of us that we think are not enough.
Got it. How can we recognize when our inner critic is starting to run the show?
When your anxiety is off the charts, when you're waking up in the middle of the night, when you're not taking care of yourself, um, when there's a lack of balance that is showing up in
Okay.
your lives, that's literally mentally, physically, emotionally, even spiritually, impacting your well-being.
And so when we notice that's happening, because I don't think we recognize a lot of times that we just think that this is life and we should live like this and there's nothing we can do about it. I feel like that's kind of the initial response. What are some of the tools or mindset shifts that we can kind of break that cycle that we're in?
Sure. Well, the first step is awareness, right? Recognizing that, oh, I'm working a lot of hours, um, and it's not healthy for me. It's taking away from my time with family, with friends, with doing things that you love. And then looking at, am I working all these hours to avoid something else? And what am I
Mm,
avoiding? Because if you're using work as a shield, if you will,
yeah.
to protect yourself or to push away something that doesn't feel good, you get to notice that. And then you get
Okay.
to choose, well, do I want to look at this thing that I'm avoiding, or do I want to keep avoiding it? Um, One of my favorite quotes is, when you look fear in the face, it shrinks to the nothingness that it actually is. Right? So
I like that.
when we when we step into the place that scares us the most, the fear just shrinks. It's like shining a light in the dark. You can't see in the dark, but when you shine the light, you can, right? So recognizing the underlying fears that are driving the behavior and then starting to make changes to those behaviors. Now, I can hear all the thoughts bubbles out there, but how do you change the behavior if it's deeply ingrained? Right? Well, it takes
Yep.
practice. It takes
Mhm.
practice. Um, and one of the the things that I do for my clients is kind of my secret sauce to the work that I do of helping you rewire your brain for new empowering habits is, as part of the work we do, I actually create customized recordings for my clients.
Mm.
And they're super, super relaxing because I use my really calm hypnotherapy
Coming,
voice.
Michelle.
Yes. And it's mixed with
Okay.
binaural beat music, and it's intended to have you drift off to sleep at night. And as you listen to it, as you drift off to sleep, the new habits, the new beliefs that we've put into place via the hypnotherapy sessions that we do, it
Mhm.
allows your brain to go, oh, okay, we're getting new rules, we're getting new operating instructions. So the point of having someone listen to it as they sleep is your critical judging mind, which is 10% of your brain cognition,
Yep.
right, goes to sleep so that your long-term memory, those new ideas and information can drop down into your long-term memory. So if I played a song from the 80s, you would probably know the words to it, wouldn't you? Right? And
Probably. Yeah.
so
Yep.
it's the same principle of um, listening to something over and over. You just you remember it, right? So by listening to these custom recordings at night, my clients are literally rewiring their nervous system and their pathways in their brain for greater confidence, for greater well-being. Oh, I want to get up and go exercise today. I want to eat healthy today. I want to make sure that I have balance in my life because I believe that
Mhm.
I actually am enough and I'm not operating from a mental mindset of I'm in deficit in some way, shape, or form.
It's always so fascinating to me to listen to you because it's so scientific what you do, because I saw it in the bankruptcy and debt and credit space. Like people didn't think rationally because of some kind of trauma in their past, usually around finances and that kind of thing. And they don't realize they're doing it. And it's like we've talked about the woo factor before, how this seems like it's a little out there, but there's so much scientific brain evidence that shows that we're not conscious about 90% of the things that we're doing and why we're doing them.
Yep.
So I love this conversation because again, it's so scientifically based. It goes back many, many years. And I
Oh.
know you've done all the research.
Yeah, I mean, actually, hypnotherapy actually goes back over 100 years.
Does it
They've been
really?
doing it for a really long time.
Yeah.
It's just becoming more and more mainstay. It's quite fascinating, actually, the studies around it because it's like the challenge, I think, is because there's big pharma, right?
Yep.
I want to give you a pill. I want to sell you a pill to make you feel better. But oh, by the way, there's all these side effects. Just ignore the side effects, but
No.
really, you're going to feel better, right? When your body is so capable of healing itself on so many levels, right? I'm not saying hypnotherapy is the end all be all cure all. It's not. And it can certainly help your body find a calmer state, a kinder
Right.
state to operate from on a daily basis, which then has the ability to calm your nervous system so your adrenaline, your cortisol levels go down, so your physiology, your immune system can work at a better, higher operating system, operating level,
Yeah.
right? So your health and your well-being naturally improves.
Yes, I'm a that whole subconscious mind, and we get stuck in it. I think the combination of tools that are out there definitely need to be looked at. And I do get frustrated with let's just try to resolve a symptom, but not the underlying cause
Right?
of
Right. I
going
mean,
on. So,
that's what's
yeah,
so frustrating to me is, I mean, God bless her. I love my mother dearly. She just turned 87, right?
I saw
And
happy birthday to mom.
yes, happy birthday, Judy. And she's had chronic IBS for as long as I can
Mhm,
remember, right? And a few years ago, it got really, really bad and it was not looking good. And I
mhm.
was like, Mom, I can help you. No, no, I'll just go to the doctor. I'm like, Mom, you've been going to the doctor for 20 years and they haven't solved the problem, right? Oh no, I'll
Yep.
be all right, right? And so there's this old school belief that's been deeply ingrained in us through our culture, through advertising, all of that that says the doctors, the Western medical doctors have all the answers when there's Eastern medicine that's been happening for like 5,000 years that also has been quite successful, right? And so it's finding the right combination for each person individually that can get at those underlying root causes that can then help the body heal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting too how some of this is coming out in society with lawyers on being more authentic. Like we're willing to be a little bit more authentic in leadership styles and what people are attracted to with employers, with companies, and things like that. Do you see that kind of vulnerability be a strength and not as much a liability as it used to be because we're kind of embracing some of these imperfections in our lives?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. as a recovering perfectionist, um, and
I don't think I'm
growing,
recovered yet, so I may need
right,
more help.
and growing up in the household that I grew up in, where everything was always in its place, literally.
Yep.
The only places in my house growing up that were messy was my mother's closet. That was it.
Mm,
And her desk. And one day I was like, Mom, how is it that everything is in such perfect order except your desk? And she's like, I know where everything is. I'm like, oh, yes, you
yep.
do. Right. And so it's just recognizing that, now I lost my train of thought. Bop. Look at that.
It's
Perfectly
okay.
imperfect.
We're being more vulnerable. Our imperfections.
Our imperfections are showing up. Yes. And so um I found that over the years of trying to get it right, um,
Mhm.
and falling down, everyone does that, right? I had a
Yeah.
when I was one of my very first training courses as a coach, a very wise John Vercelli said to me, he goes, Michelle, you're so much more approachable when you're vulnerable. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, thank you. I have to be perfect. I have to have it all together. What are you talking about, John? Like, I literally had no comprehension or understanding of how that even made sense. And over all these
Yeah.
years now, I've realized, oh, yes, he was very correct in his wisdom. And I've had to learn the lesson over and over and over again because when we tell on ourselves, like, oh, I lost
Mhm.
my train of thought. I don't have it all together,
Yep.
right? You level the playing field so that people see you as far more relatable versus, oh, Jen's the lawyer. I don't have any answers. There's this hierarchy, right? And that power and control model has been around for, thousands of years, really. And so we're finally
Mhm.
breaking free from that to say, I don't have it all together, but I'm going to bring my very best for you today, and I hope that's enough, right?
And I think it's so difficult. Yes, I think it's so difficult for lawyers to admit that they either made a mistake or that we talk about not knowing everything, but even making a mistake is hard and I've tried to be really good about that. When someone brings it to my attention that I don't necessarily understand something they said, I try to acknowledge that, but it's hard. Like you're inside, you're like, I don't want to admit that I need to look like I'm perfect. And I think showing the vulnerability helps because it gets people to realize that you really are trying to work with them and help them. And I think that helps lawyers like with clients and consults and with staff members to show that. But it's really hard to get to that point where you're saying, ooh, I should take this constructive criticism or show that I'm not always right to people who think I should always be right.
Well,
It's hard.
and you're right, it is a new habit to form, right? And I'm not saying, you know, show up as a hot mess to work every day. That's not what we're
No, please
saying,
don't.
right?
Yes.
Yet at the same time, it's about recognizing what's the impact that you want to have,
Mhm.
not only with your staff, but with your clients. Do you want to
Yep.
be seen as relatable, or do you want to be seen as separate and and
Right.
better than or standoffish or whatever that might look like? And that's a personal style, right? But I love to hear that desire for authenticity is making its way through the halls of lawyers because that's really, really important.
What I think is really important that I'm seeing in the legal world these days is that people recognize where others are coming from. That it's been, like you said, very hierarchy sometimes when it comes to the legal industry. And we can learn a lot from the newer generations and how they think about things and how they do things. And I think having that authenticity as an older lawyer now at this point to be willing to listen at least. Sometimes you're like, kind of crazy idea have they come up with? But I think it's just one of those
Those
things where you
crazy
have, if you're not
kids.
open, yeah, if you're not open to that, though, I think that's where you get stuck in this anxiety ridden cycle because everything around you is not matching up with reality. So,
Yeah, well, we're in a really unique time. There's 5 generations in the workplace.
yeah,
5 different generations. That's crazy, right? And so the perspectives are so vastly different. And so
yes,
creating the psychological safety in an office space where you've got lawyers of different generations and creating
mm-hmm.
space where that listening can happen will make a huge, huge difference because we can all learn from each other, right?
Yep,
To find new and different ways to solve the problem at hand.
yep, exactly. And it's all about the solutions. Like, how do you generate, quality solutions for clients and for staff, and that's what it all comes down to. So, a very good conversation to have. Let's talk real quick about the book that you co-authored with Tom Collins because I have I think I have it, but I have not read it to be perfectly honest.
That's all
Um,
right.
or
I
maybe
won't
I've read
ding you
parts of
for
it.
it.
I'm trying to remember. Right? I'm being flawed here.
You're being
Tell us
flawsome.
about the
That's
book and yes, and who it's for. And obviously it's for me, but I need to read it. Tell us
that's
about it.
what divert thy eyes, divert thy eyes, right? Um, my colleague Tom Collins, who is a retired lawyer, he and his wife Yvonne live
There's
in New
such a
York.
thing.
You're right. Well, he and Yvonne, their business is master book builders. So they help
Hmm.
folks who are writing books to write it, to edit it, to build the book, and to publish and market the book. So um, Tom had started writing this several years ago just because he was curious about
Mhm.
it. He saw an interview with Ali Reisman, the gymnast, who was quoted as saying, I think imperfection is beauty, right? So you think about an Olympic level gymnast and their need to be perfect, right? So
Yep. Yep.
that's what started the book. And then in January of 2023, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you like to collaborate with me on this book?" I was like, "Yes, please." So um, we wrote it and published it last year in May. So gosh, it's almost been a year. Hard to believe. Um, and it's all about what is perfectionism, how it impacts us both personally and professionally. The idea of kintsugi, the Japanese art and philosophy of golden repair, is woven throughout the theme. That's why there's a bowl on the front, right? This is a kintsugi bowl, which
Uh-huh.
um, kintsugi talks about taking broken pottery and putting it back together and then painting the cracks with gold dust, making the mended, broken piece more beautiful, more valuable than it was before, right? So we then apply that philosophy to ourselves. Like the traumas in our lives that have broken us in different ways or dented us or cracked us, right? Are part of what makes us resilient, part of what makes us unique and beautiful and one of a kind, right? So
Yep.
throughout the book, we have our own stories, tons of research that we did. We did our own surveys for this. Um, and each chapter has journal prompts at the end to help you start to identify where is perfection getting in my way and how is it impacting me and what are the shifts that I want to be making. Um, there's a chapter specifically for women because it impacts women at a higher rate than men. Our research found that 85% of women feel the need to be perfect versus
Yep.
just
Yep.
77% of men. And 92% of folks deal with perfectionism to some degree in their lifetime. So
Yep.
it's a very pervasive issue, even for kids. 25 to 30% of kids, of teens, suffer from maladaptive perfectionism, which is astounding
I
to
believe
me,
that.
but
I
not
see that
surprising.
in one of my own kids. Everything has to be perfect. I'm trying to get that mindset away from her. So, you know what? As you're explaining the book, and I have actually realized that I have read it, but I need to go back and read it because I think I read the proof right before you released
Oh,
it.
right,
Um,
right, yeah.
what is sticking out to me is lawyers are always looking for branding and how they're unique. And it seems to me that your book could help them figure out some of those ways that those imperfections have made them a unique person for whatever they're in. So I think there's a tie in there that just popped into my head. So
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. My
my
former
brain's
life,
weird.
I was a creative director and graphic designer and brand marketing expert. So I will look at that. Thank you.
Yeah. You have to look at and figure out a talk with a branding expert or even yourself, just kind of how to use that idea of unique imperfection to craft a brand. So interesting.
hmm
Sorry, the Rebel Roundtable is not intended to come up with business ideas on the fly, but sometimes it
But when it does,
happens.
it's all good.
Go. Thank you, Michele, for being here today. I don't want to go. I try to go 30 minutes or less because we're all very busy people. But one thing we do have on the Rebel Roundtable is what is your Rebel anthem? What song do you pump up on the radio when you need to get either excited or worked up about something?
Oh, I think I have three lately.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
there's there's Confident by Demi Lovato. Um,
Okay.
there's Unstoppable by Sia, and
Yeah.
the newest one to the list is The Champion by Carrie Underwood. So I highly recommend them. They will totally pump you up. They're really good, loud in the car, driving down the freeway, singing at the top of your lungs.
Well, I will get them added to the Rebel Roundtable Spotify list so that people can go through and every guest has one at least one song on there. Some of them have two, and now you'll have three on there. But I will say Unstoppable by Sia is already on there. So we'll add the two others on there. And then how can people reach out to you if they want to talk to you more about our brains?
Sure. So you can always visit me at michelemolitor.com. You can find me at LinkedIn, of course, Facebook, Instagram at Rapid Rewire. And I'm always happy to have a complimentary and confidential clarity call with folks who are curious to know how they can rewire their brains for greater happiness and success and well-being.
Very good. Well, thank you for being here. And thank you to all my rebels out there for listening in on Friday mornings to the Rebel Round.